Okay, we are live streaming now. All right, so I want to welcome everybody. We are testing out a new system. And let me just ask you this, is it okay if I turn the closed captioning off for our view? Okay, it's a little better, it's hard to see. And I just want to make sure, if anybody's watching, you can put something in the chat. If you're having a hard time hearing, we're trying to see if this is a better system, in place with microphones and with the video. It's definitely a better video, I can tell already, because we got the whole view, which is nice. So, okay, with that then, I'm going to share my screen real quick for just my update for today. So let's see this. All right, everybody see that? Yeah. Now see on my screen it shows. Oh, there. Take a second. Okay, great. So just want to highlight again, we're still moving forward with the strategic plan. Some members of the public might have gotten a call from our consultant, S Brands Solutions, and they're reaching out to do both interviews as well as a focus group. So there'll actually be an invitation going out to some people to sign up to attend a focus group in person. They're going to be visiting the town the week of June 5th, and June 6th is when we're going to have our community visioning session. So we would love to have as many members of the public join us for that to provide their input on what they care about in Madison and what they see for our future. And then also please complete the survey. We've got postcards all over the place. We're going to have yard signs out. There's a QR code, and we just encourage everybody. It's on the town website. To take the survey, it takes about 15 minutes, and we'd love to get greater participation in the survey. Also want to highlight, I mentioned this last time, we have a number of new technology initiatives going on. One is this new, well, actually, we've transitioned the town from Microsoft Exchange to Gmail. And so there might have been a few bumps with this, with the calendars and things like that for staff. But if you feel like you didn't get as responses quickly from people from town government, or if you're a board and commission member that's also getting moved over, that's what's going on. It just happened over the weekend. I think generally everything went pretty smoothly, but if you're having any issues, please contact my office and we'll try to get you some help or assistance in getting things working better. The other thing that's been ongoing for the last 4 to 6 weeks has been this new agenda center for meeting minutes and agendas. I know some members of the public have had some frustrations with that. We've gotten some good feedback. We're working with our vendor to see if they can address some of the complaints. And if they can't, we're going to try to figure it out, because obviously this is supposed to be something that's user-friendly and helpful to the public as well as staff. So any feedback that's constructive would be helpful, and we will try to get those things fixed as we work with the vendor to kind of make some corrections to the system that we're using now. Also want to highlight Memorial Day Parade is on Monday, May 29th, with the 10 a.m. step off at Stop and Shop. And then the ceremony is immediately following, and I need to double check the location because I thought it was on the town green by the flagpoles, but there's also an event I know at the American Legion. So the website will be the most up to date for that information. And then we had to reschedule the dog park because Saturday was torrential rain. And so that will be moved to June 3rd at 1 o'clock. And then I just want to also mention, because some residents might have received a letter in the mail from the town, as well as from the Lieutenant Governor and the Commissioner for Veterans Affairs about a Veterans Awards ceremony. It's scheduled for June 28th at 5 p.m. at Daniel Hand. And this is for those Vietnam and Korean War veterans that are residents of Madison. And it's just a way to recognize their service. The Lieutenant Governor and the Commissioner have been doing these throughout the state of Connecticut. And so we were just on the list to do this, and we're excited to do it. It's a great way to recognize service for these individuals. So it'll be a really nice ceremony, but if any resident has a family member or they themselves served in either of these conflicts and did not receive a letter from the town, please reach out to my office also, because we want to make sure we get everybody. We use a lot of resources that we can, but it's imperfect in terms of tracking information for people. So we do request, reach out if there's somebody that you think we missed in this. You should have gotten a letter probably like a week ago. Also want to talk about go on to the next slide. Oh, there we go. The budget referendum. So last Tuesday, we had a vote, obviously, and we're very grateful for those who did turn out to vote. And the budget did pass overwhelmingly with about 63% of residents approving the budget. But obviously, the big discussion was low turnout. And so I wanted to talk a little bit, first of all, about how we as a town compare to our historic turnout. And as you can see, the what I had here, the turnout history lists what the voter turnout was over the last 10 years. And so this year's was actually not that far off from previous years. It's on the lower end of the scale, but we've had years that were lower for turnout. So this is kind of a recurring pattern. And then the other thing I thought is, and you can't see it up there because of where the, is just to talk about other towns. And so we just had somebody do a little research to say, well, is this a Madison thing or is this a, happening in communities across the country? So we don't have great information. I want to get this further updated, this list. But we're on the lower side, but we're not the lowest. As you can see that Simsbury and Avon had even, and North Branford. And each town has a very different process, what they go through to approve their budgets. So some of this could be nuanced depending on their process. But also I did want to highlight too that, our budget change, our increase in the budget is actually on the lower end compared to some of our peers. So, and then also our mill rate. And some towns have not voted on their mill rate. Some towns have another process, but our mill rate is either, on the lower end or in line with what other communities are doing. So I thought that was just helpful information as we look at this. And then, and I know there was a lot of discussion on social media and stuff about like, well, what does the town do to tell us about the budget referendum? So there are a lot of things that the town does, but we can always improve, and I think we want to get feedback from the public about what do they think we should do. But this just lists all the different ways we reach out about the budget referendum. And it's always held the same time every year. So if you've lived in Madison a long time, you always know in May, around the second week of May or third week of May, you vote in the town budget referendum. And then our new charter, though, actually gives us flexibility to change that timeline. We might be able to actually vote in late April now. So that's something our board should discuss probably over the summer, because that will guide the budgeting process. And is there a benefit to doing that? Does that mean we'll get more turnout? Is it just work better with everybody's schedules to have the vote earlier? But now with the new charter, we have a little more flexibility. So I think that's something we as a board should talk about if it's going to maybe help the process. The registrars do a lot of signage. They put out A-frames at different locations. And then we also use those emergency signboards. We put 2 of those out, one on the circle. These are all a week ahead of time. And then one also downtown. So those were out. And then there was an article on the budget in March that was published, a full article describing the budget. And then we actually published the whole budget twice, once in April and once in May. That's in the source. So you go in and you see pages and pages of the budget. And then there was articles in the Madison Events magazine, which comes out quarterly. And then Madison Alert, which is a subscription thing. If you sign up for that, you get lots of notices about this. It was in every community update on a weekly basis since March. And then it was also, we post a lot on Facebook. It's on the website. So there's a lot like electronically that we do to people who subscribe to Madison Alert. So if you feel like you're not knowing about it, sign up for Madison Alerts, because you'll get all kinds of information in advance and a lot of reminders about voting. And then there's public meetings. And I forgot to fill in the last 2 workshops. I was going to try to find out how many Board of Ed workshops there are. So there's hearings that we do, or you can come and tell the boards what you think about the budgets. And then each of the boards also have deliberations where they sit around and talk about the budgets, and those are open to the public as well. And so I know our board have at least 3, the Board of Finance has 3, and then CIP, which is our capital planning committee, they also have 2 public hearings, and they have multiple workshops. So I also have to fill in the blanks. I forgot to do that. And then the superintendent did a push on the Friday before, reminding parents in town that, that the vote was on Tuesday. And then there's these external communications, and sometimes other groups will go out and advocate one way or the other. The town cannot do that. The town can only say to vote. It's all in the hands of the voters, but sometimes other groups, PTOs, the political parties, they might put out signs, but that's not a town function. That is their option, and they do what they do. They might do a robocall, they might do email blasts, Facebook posts. That's independent of what the town does. So I just thought it was important to highlight that we do a lot. But we talked about, like, I'd love to have the new banner that we just paid for to get working again downtown, over 79. Budget referendum, and just take that over for a couple weeks. We've never used that, and I think that would be a great way next year, now that once they get the repairs done. And then other people had asked about robocalls, and I think the issue is, what can the town do with its resources? We can't really use the emergency communication systems for something like this. So that's why we set up Madison Alerts, right? So that was supposed to be in place of trying to use emergency communications. We used a lot during COVID to get information out, but there's a certain point where it loses its value because people stop paying attention. So we want people to pick up the phone for emergency communications, but I think if we can get more people to do a Madison Alerts, we could also do a robocall through that system, just reminding people, when to vote. So I do encourage the public to email my office with other ideas, productive ideas about how we can be better about this, and we'll put a communications plan in place for next year, maybe to improve turnout. So, but I did want to highlight that there is a lot that's done, but it's not perfect, and there's always ways to improve. So that is it from my updates. And with that, I guess I'll open it up to liaison reports and selectmen comments.
Do you have any?
I don't have anything.
No reports on my end.
Okay, and Scott, I'm assuming you have no liaison reports, right? I feel like we just had a meeting, so.
No, I do not.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, with that, then I guess why don't we move on to item number 4 and open it up to citizens' comments. Jacqueline, do we have any hands raised calling for citizens' comments?
No hands are raised.
Okay, great. And for those attending, there's also an opportunity at the end of the meeting to provide public comment. All right, with that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I guess I'd like to get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. So,
Second.
okay, any discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye, great.
Aye.
All right, Scott, great. Consent agenda passes. And just for the public's benefit, a lot of these were agreements that the board had approved really a long time ago, and this was just finalizing the actual document, so that's why it looks a lot longer than it is. Item number 6 is discuss and take action to approve the proposed draft ordinance on the prohibition of cannabis establishments in the town of Madison. Motion?
Second.
Okay, I know Bruce was very involved in this as chair of the cannabis committee. He could not be here tonight, but he just called me to emphasize and to tell the public that he's very supportive of moving this forward with the prohibition that we had discussed at our last meeting. So any other discussion from the board on this? I think we were good at our last meeting.
Yeah, we're good at the next meeting.
Yeah. Scott, good? So with that, then
Yes, I'm good.
okay. I know.
Hard to get off mute.
That's all right. Well, because we're voting, I just want to make sure you're.
Well, all I can see is Jack, and I'm worried that he's going to get mad at me for.
All right. With that, then all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, great. All right. Ordinance passes. So great. Thank you. And I know that was a lot of work over the last couple of months, but it's nice to get something done. Yeah, great. All right, so item number 7 is an update from the new elementary school building committee. And so we are going to be joined by the chair of the building committee, Jacqueline, if you can bring Graham Curtis up. And then I think Bill McMinn is also online. And I know Dr. Cook was going to try to join as well.
Here's Graham.
Great. So, Graham, I know we had met a few months ago. Obviously, the town is experiencing what I think every town in Connecticut and the entire country is experiencing with inflation and construction costs and, trying to move projects forward, but dealing with supply chain and everything else. So, I know you guys were sharpening your pencils, right, to get the budget tighter. So it'd be great if you could give us an update on where your committee is right now.
Absolutely. Let me share my screen here.
Welcome Adam as well from Colliers.
Let me know when you can see my screen.
We can.
We can indeed.
Got it. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Good evening. Time for another update. I think it was a couple months ago, the last time we were here, and we've been diligently working with our design team and our construction manager and owner rep to get to this point. We've reached a major milestone now, and I think it's a good time to come and present to you. So just to give you a summary, what we're going to go over today, I'm going to give you a schedule update, where we are in this 4-year process. We'll update the budget status. We've just completed our design development estimate, and we present that information to you. I'll briefly update you where we stand with the local permit and approvals updates that we're going through right now, and then some follow-up requests and tasks that we need to do to move forward. So this is, I don't know how easily you can read this, but this is our 4-year process here, starting at referendum in February of 2022. We were working through the design process, this blue line. Here, it's approximately a 17-month process. We have completed design development, which is the second of the third phases. Following that, we did a detailed estimate of all the costs were. We spent a lot of time value engineering, determining what we could not include in the budget, reducing it, make sure there was nothing excessive in the project. And we were concluded with the numbers, which I'll present in a second. Subsequent to that, we need to make some decisions about moving forward. And then we need to authorize the architect to complete the drawings, the construction documents, get the final approval from the state, and then go out to bid in December of this year for a construction start in February with a 15-month construction start, and then occupying the building in June of 2025. So that's the overall schedule. We are right here in the current bar in mid-May. So that's the overall schedule. Just going to go over the budget status, which is really the critical part at this point. As I mentioned, we concluded the DD plan. We concluded the DD design development plans, which are about 35% of the design. So it's very difficult to make any changes after this. The CDs are the rest of the construction documents. Currently, our DD estimate is 5.8 million over budget. And I'll explain some of the reasons in a minute. I will note that this does not include $1.9 million, which we've moved to bid alternates for a total overage of 7.7. The purpose of doing bid alternates is allow us, when we open the bids, there's things that we'd like to have, but we know we can't necessarily afford them. So we put them in there, and if the bids come in lower, we're able to add those things into the project. For example, in the library, we opened almost $2 million under budget, and we were able to add in almost every single thing that was on our wish list. So it's a good strategy to do that. I will mention that some of these items, are in the ed spec, and we would in the Board of Ed spec. So some of these, if we can't afford those, we'd have to go back to the Board of Education and request that they eliminate those from the ed spec. We've already had some preliminary discussions with them about that eventuality. The reasons. Is there any questions on the budget overage right now? Good. There's several reasons for this. Obviously, the escalation has been exceptional due to the COVID supply chain. But additionally, due to COVID, the student population in the elementary school grade shows a significant increase. So the ed spec was modified to increase 4 additional classrooms. Based on the projections moving forward, they were just continuing to go up and up. So there's $2.3 million we estimate that was in the overage due to that. And the remaining $5.4 million was due to abnormal escalation and a geothermal cost premium. And let me just explain that. There's various ways to do a system, traditional engineering, HVAC systems, and then advanced state-of-the-art geothermal heat pumps. They're very effective, and they can dramatically reduce the cost. We actually installed one of those in the library, and the actual cost for the new building was actually less. The utility costs were lower than the original building. So this is something we talked about. Now, what transpired subsequent to COVID is that the government passed late last year the Inflation Reduction Act, or IRA, that covers the cost and reimburse 30 to 40% of the cost of those high efficiency systems, which would mitigate about $2.5 to $3 million. So we knew that we would get reimbursed for that, or rebates or credits back on that, and we decided as a committee that it made perfect sense to go forward with that, recognizing that even though that money would be received after the fact, so we really couldn't count it in the budget. So the town will see that money. It's just that we can't use it for our budgeting perspectives. So those are the two main reasons. There are some mitigations to this overage. As I mentioned, there's a $2.5 to $3 million from rebates and credits from the Inflation Reduction Act that the town will receive, but it won't help our budget necessarily due to the nature of the referendum process. Secondly, we have a request into the state for additional reimbursement for the project budget based on the fact that it makes more sense to build a new building than renovate two existing elementary schools. That request is in right now, and we would receive potentially a $5 million additional state reimbursement. Again, that helps the town reduce the tax costs, and they'll go into more detail in that issue, but basically both these things will reduce the impact, but they don't allow us to exceed necessarily the number that we are tasked with. So that's the budget status. So we are, let me see. Okay. So we'll talk about the follow-up tasks next. Permitting, just to update you, our civil engineer has prepared the design plans, and the architects have prepared the plans. They've been submitted to the local land use boards. ACA was approved 5/15. There is a public hearing for the Wetlands Commission 6/5, and the Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing will be 6/15. This will give the public an opportunity to review the plans, comment on them. We've already had multiple meetings with the neighbors, but we want to make sure that we give everyone involved an opportunity to express their opinion on the project. So the follow-up. So there's two takeaways for us. We need, at this point, as I mentioned, we're concluded with the design development. We're finishing the budgeting process, so we need to release the architect to proceed with completion of the construction documents for bidding, but we need to define what the budget is so he knows what to design. And secondly, we will be coming back to you with a request for putting out some electrical equipment out to an early procurement bid. Supply chain is, I'm sure a lot of you have heard, there's some severe constraints in the supply chain for electrical equipment. Some equipment is 52 months to 80 months out. So obviously, if you're going to build a building in 15 months, you can't get something that takes longer than that just to show up on the site. So we're going to be asking for the ability to procure through our construction manager to buy some equipment. It's approximately $1 million, so we can get that and get it delivered in a timely manner so we can keep the schedule tight. So that is the summary of where we are. I think we're basically on schedule, but we are under pressure to move forward with decision fairly soon, just to stay the schedule, because we have a tight bidding market, and we want to make sure we hit the bidding market as timely as possible. So let's see, last slide. Questions? Any questions or follow-up on that?
Graham, when do you anticipate hearing back from the state about that extra reimbursement? Have they given you a timeline?
I believe that Colliers, our construction manager, I think we're hoping to hear in a month or so. I don't know if anyone else on the call has a,
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm hearing, that in June is when that would be finalized. I mean, we're hearing positive things, but it's not guaranteed, but I think we have a very strong chance of getting it. Which is another $5 to $6 million, which is huge for this project. So, if we get good news in June, we'll be pleased to do that. A question I have is, the enrollment. I think last time we had met, you were waiting for results on an enrollment study. Because, the idea was we want to add these extra classrooms, which were added after the referendum. The board decided to add it to the ed specs. And then, you had some preliminary estimates, and then I think you got another report in, right, since we last met. And so it sounds like that's confirmed then that we're on track to need these classrooms.
Yes, I don't know if Dr. Cook wants to comment on anything further.
Yes, be happy to, Graham. And thanks for the question, Peggy. Absolutely. Every report we've received, whether it was our yearly report that we get from NASDAQ or the paid reports that we do through SLAM Collaborative, have shown the need for the additional classrooms. So those have been confirmed, if not a slight uptick in additional students every time we do the report.
Which is good. I mean, people are choosing to move here and stay here, which is great. To see a lot of young families moving to Madison.
Yeah.
But it sounds like that extra square footage is important. I think one of the things we learned is it's easier to add amenities later, but it's really hard to add square footage to a building once you've kind of built the building. So any other questions for them? And we were going to talk a little bit about, because really you need to fill this $5 to $7 million gap, right? And from what I understand, the 1.9 million are things that the building committee would really like to include in the project, but they're going to be considered more options depending on what the actual bidding comes back, right? In the fall. When you get the project cost, you get actual bids.
Right. I mean, and the just to put a point on it. So the 5.8 is the minimum we need to move forward with the design as is to have a complete building. We would like to get some of that, some of that extra 1.9 in the base just to make sure the building, I think some, where we cut it as hard as we could, but some of those things are in the ed spec and we think there are important. So if we could do more than the 5.8 minimum, I think it would give us a little more flexibility. But you're right. The 1.9 is, things that we do not have to have a fully operational building.
And I know we talked maybe at our last meeting about contingency. Obviously, all of this has contingency built in that.
Right. Yes.
And so if there's more surprises or things that happen during the construction process, you still have a level of contingency in the project?
Absolutely. I mean, we still have some design contingency to allow for things that aren't on the plans right now. And we also have owner's contingency and construction contingency, but it's good practice. So we don't have to come back and ask for more money after the fact.
How much money generally is that right now? Roughly just a couple $1 million, or I forget what the numbers are.
I think it's the magnitude of $5 million total.
Okay.
It is different if it's in different pots.
Right. Okay. So there's 5 million out there to cover other stuff for the emergencies.
Right. I mean, the things that happen, I mean, unplanned things that always happen, but you don't know what they are now. You know what I mean? That's you can't look to spend the contingency now because you don't know what you don't know. And hopefully,
hopefully, I think that's more. So hopefully, if you don't need the contingency, that money just doesn't get spent on other things.
No, and we would return the contingency. And very often on projects like this, we would return $1 million, or more. I mean, on the library, we would have returned $500,000, but the way the state grant was set up, if we didn't spend the $2 million the state grant, I mean, we would have had to give them the money back. So we worked hard to make sure we got the most possible library we could. In this case, we can return the money if it's depending on whose contingency pot it is in. But I wouldn't recommend using contingency now because that's why I have contingency.
So I thought it would be helpful to have Stacy talk a few minutes about because obviously they're looking for us to figure out how we're going to fill this gap, right? And actually I'll share my screen just to remind people. What we had, what was approved by the voters of Madison, really, right? See if it's gonna move. All right, why don't you talk and I'll figure this out for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead and walk through. I was just gonna show the numbers though, because we, yeah, go ahead and then I'll
Okay.
figure it out.
So, if you recall, when we went to referendum in February of 22, there were two parts. One was to authorize appropriation for the total project cost, and one was to authorize the issuance of bonds or notes net of grants. So talking about the appropriation, the total amount was $89,200,000. So we're pretty much stuck. We cannot spend more than that in total for the three projects that it's the first row on
Yeah.
Peggy's slide right now. So that's what was approved by the voters. So we're pretty much stuck to that 89.2 million. Whether or not we get these grants in, that is only applied when we go out to issue our bonds or notes. However, in the authorization, we did include that the Board of Selectmen by resolution can transfer funds among the projects. So if we do feel like we have a little bit of extra funds, and for example, for the Polson project, we can, through the Board of Selectmen, authorize to move some funds from Polson to the new elementary. The only thing to keep in mind, and we had multiple conversations with bond counsel, was we still want to keep the integrity of the scope of any other project. So we don't want to take too much from one project to give to this project, because we still want to complete what we promised that we were going to complete at those other schools. So that is option number one. The other option is, even though we only appropriated $89.2 million, if there's anything outside of that scope that was in the original appropriation for the three projects, we could go out and do additional funding, another funding source, grants or a special appropriation. So when Grant talked about these new classrooms, this information on the enrollment came in after the referendum was passed. We did new ed specs, Board of Ed took action on approving these 4 new classrooms. We talked to our bond counsel and he did agree that these 4 classrooms would be outside of the scope. So that piece, I think it was 2.3 or 2.4 that Graham mentioned, that could be outside of the scope and we can appropriate additional funds for that. So that would not tie us to this referendum appropriation authorization. If we do opt to do that for the new classrooms, it would be a Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and a town meeting approval. And then in addition to that, if there were any other items related to the project that was not in the original scope, we can opt to do the same thing. But at this point in time, we were kind of talking back and forth with bond counsel that this one item could be carved out and we could ask for additional funding to the town. If we did that, then the difference of that 5.8 million, we could potentially borrow that or move that over from Polson and wait to see where we end up once we get, moving with Polson, we go out to bid and we get the more firm numbers for Polson. It may be the option right now to swap some of the funds over, still planning to do the project at Polson and not shortchanging that project, and then see where we fall. But that would be at Board of Selectmen approval.
And I know what was a little frustrating is that the Inflation Reduction Act came out after the referendum, right? Which creates all these tax incentives and rebates to put in energy efficient projects. But for a bonding resolution, they make you look at the costs. They don't look at what it actually costs you, but what you pay for it. So it's kind of like you buy a refrigerator, you pay the full price, but then you get that check back. So unfortunately, we have to account for within the resolution, the full price of the project, knowing that we're gonna get millions of dollars back because of the rebates. So that'll,
Those rebates are guaranteed.
I think we're working with council right now. No, we're working with council right now because this is all through this federal Inflation Reduction Act, and we've got a legal counsel helping us through this. So
We have the auditors also
Yeah,
helping.
yeah,
us.
so we don't have a final determination on that, but, you know, and what we're struggling with is that geothermal, it does, you know, sticker price costs a lot more than a conventional system, but if you're gonna end up getting most of that overage back, why would you put in a conventional system, right? Because you're gonna save in your annual operating costs a lot, you know, in terms of operating the building, so so that's kind of something that's frustrating, and then, you know, I think what this highlights, it just shows that we're not gonna be bonding $89 million. Because we know we're getting the 9.8 million already, we're pretty much assured of the 9.8, and we have a very high chance of getting the additional 5, which is great. No guarantees, we're hoping in June, we're gonna get the final numbers on that, but, so it's just one of these exercises we have to go through and figure out, you know, how we do this and timing, because I think the Polson project is a little more amorphous in terms of what the actual, it's gonna look like. We didn't commit to a specific type of HVAC system, which with the new school we did. We sold it on, right, and LEED certified, so Polson, we have a few more options we can explore. And then we also have the new generator project going on. That we got that $1 million, this was all post-referendum once again. So we have the generator project, which is gonna require a lot of electrical improvements to get the generator in there. And we're trying to get that project going. So that actually might result in some cost savings on the HVAC project. But we won't know that for possibly maybe 6 months, you know, once the final schematics and all that are done for the project, so.
I'd like to follow up Jen's question, Stacy. You have more experience working with the grants than any of us. To what extent will you be able to assure us that if we qualify for those grants, that we'll actually get them?
Are we talking about the state reimbursement grant for the elementary school?
That would be a good place to start, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would think, I mean, we have the commitment, we applied for the application, it's just a matter of going through the motions and requesting the reimbursement for our original reimbursement rate. We're really crossing our fingers and hoping that this additional amount will come forward, but I would say after, you know, the state does approve this, that we will submit all the appropriate paperwork and get reimbursed as so.
And what about the energy efficiency rebates? What does that process look like?
Okay, so that's totally new for everybody. I gotta say, you know, we've had a few meetings with our auditors. They actually had to reach out to their resources because this is a brand new program. But they looked at our specs. Bill McMinn gave them a lot of information for a different project. So we can get things rolling so we know where we're heading with this project. But it does seem like it's a thing that's happening and it's highly supported. It's just a matter of going through the motions. So I would think if we get them what we need to, it should be positive results.
Stacy, do you think we'll be able to use the same grant program for the academy building? In terms of the energy?
Yeah, so we're actually looking, the first project actually is a geothermal here. So this is happening in the fall, so this is kind of our guinea pig. And what we have to do and get through the motions, learn, you know, the paperwork, and then we will have much more information to share with you. This is kind of
And that's another one where we're gonna be getting money back, hopefully on something that we budgeted, you know.
Yeah, there's some kind
We
of
used ARPA funds for
reimbursement,
this
yeah.
project, so.
Yeah,
That's a reimbursement also.
It's a reimbursement and or a tax credit to our vendors, so it's all new and we're learning as we go along, but I feel like we have the right resources now. And this, like I said, this will be the guinea pig and we'll figure it out, and going forward with these other big projects, we'll be ahead of the game.
I'll save my academy questions till next month when
Okay.
we review that project.
Yeah, that's another.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's exciting. It's big dollars, big reimbursement.
I think, I think really we have to, it's a little frustrating, I think, because, you're so limited. Your success, the more grants you go after, the more, it doesn't really help you in terms of actually dealing with overages. It just helps reduce what you bond, which is good for the taxpayer and good for the budgets, but it doesn't help get the project funded. So we have these kind of two options that we could go down. We're fortunate, because a lot of other towns, you've probably seen in the paper, have had to go back to voters, but we have a much, broader mandate in terms of shifting between the projects, so it buys us some time a little bit, And this one is chugging along, because if we delay this much longer on the how do we pay for it front, we're gonna miss a window, and we're not gonna be on schedule. And that's a whole year, as you know, is with the schools, right?
Right.
You miss it, you gotta wait a whole nother school year, and
Yeah.
then you're running these buildings that are, 2 extra schools and uncertainty, and it just really, I think we all wanna keep the school project on time.
Peggy, is there anything to learn for a future Board of Selectmen in terms of putting together the language for these bonding referenda to provide the most flexibility when it comes time to actually get the numbers back and what the
Yeah.
projects are gonna cost? I mean, is there any
Well, I think that
more fluid language that can be used?
what we're being told is there really isn't. This is very much like state driven. And so this is kind of like the language you have to use. And so it's not like we could have put in plus grants versus, less grants. In terms of the bonding, yeah,
But the one flexibility was
yeah.
to be able to transfer within the project.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing to include in our resolution. So we do have that
Mhm.
flexibility, but yeah, Matt, our bond counsel was very clear, this is pretty much the way
Yeah.
the wording needs to be.
And I think, we along with a lot of communities, right now, these numbers are started 5 years ago, right? And then we always had escalations, and then when we finally went out to referendum, it was like, I think the Ukraine war happened like that month, and then we started also seeing the end of COVID, and it just all these other factors hit, the economics of it, and building prices went through the roof. So we're kind of suffering from that right now. I mean, I actually feel a little relieved because it's not as bad as it could have been. And I think our building committee has done a really good job at really prioritizing, because I think everybody has PTSD about the high school, right? So we're not shortchanging this, right? And I think that's where the classroom expansion, people might think, well, we just don't have the classrooms, but it's so hard to add and expand the footprint once you build a school, right? Especially make it workable and functional and cost effective. So I think that's like, in my view, in some ways, the equivalent of some of the things that were kind of cut corners on the high school, right? There are other things that they had to make some hard decisions on. And, maybe we can get some more information to the board on where that is. But I think right now we got these paths where I think we're probably in very good territory about the special appropriation, because we have the funds available in our fund balance. It allows to get at least that piece addressed. And then we have to have a conversation about how comfortable we are shifting with a commitment that we are going to still get Polson done, and we will be able to make it happen. So, because I think that's an important thing to assure the public.
Yeah, personally, I feel like I would need a little more information on what that all looks like, what's getting pushed off, and, how does that change the scope of that project? That would be good info to have.
Well, let's wish Graham and his committee full speed ahead. And I'm sure you'll be back chatting with us before too long.
Yeah, I know they're eager to get some commitment from us. So I think this is going to have to be a much more detailed, conversation in June. Probably the next 2 meetings in June to really nail down what we're comfortable doing.
Mhm.
The special appropriation has to go through both boards and town meeting. The Board of Selectmen is the one that decides about the transfers.
Okay.
So that's part of the bond authorization. So this isn't going through any other board, it just goes through us. But I think they would want us to treat this as a priority in June, I think, because they gotta get these documents out. And if there's gonna be an attempt to make any kind of, reductions or whatever, then they're gonna have to really, they need to do it now.
Right.
And then I think it would be a delay probably in the time. So, so I think that, guys, we'll reconvene, Graham and, Dr. Cook and Bill, and then plan on attending our next meeting, and maybe we get into a little bit more about the projects and the funding and what we would need. I mean, it sounds like the amount that we would be transferring, if we did move in that direction, if we did the 2.5 million, we would do around 3.5 from Polson. So that is, taking, that still leaves about 18 million in the Polson budget. But the intention is that we're gonna find a way to get funds back into the Polson budget. We just need some time to get it to that point, but, okay, so we'll plan on coming back again.
We'll be back.
Thank you for the update, and to be continued, okay?
Thank you. Thank you for your time, everyone.
All right, thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. Okay, all right, so next item on the agenda is discuss and take possible action to revise the town seal to include the words Madison, Connecticut. So the board has in front of it, so just a little background, and I think Rita is going to be joining us for this conversation. We need to create I guess you call it a B file for our town seal, because right now we're using like a different kind of image quality. We also need to have this finalized because we're going to be ordering our signs for the welcome signs for town, which everybody's excited about. And I know Rita had wanted to, she felt it was important to add the town name and state as part of the town seal, because there's a lot of Madisons across the country. So we thought this is the time to do it before we go out and put all these new signs up and then decide to change it later. So Rita, I'll let you, if you could show your screen and kind of walk through, and maybe if you have more to add to that about why you think we need to do this now.
Hey, can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. This is the original seal, and I'm not looking to change it. I'm only looking to enhance it. If you look at town seals for other towns across Connecticut, across the country, they include the name of the town. I felt that that was something important to do. When you look at our seal here in town, we know that it's us. And it would be great if everyone knew that it was us. So this is the original seal. And like Peggy said, I needed to redraw the seal in a different format so that when we enlarge it or make it really small, it doesn't lose quality. Sometimes you'll see an image get blown up really big and it gets very grainy. So I've done that, and I've come up with 3 different plans, I guess you'd call them. Oops. So this is my first option. I've changed the banner down at the bottom. I put Madison, Connecticut in the bottom. If you recall, I'll go back to the first one. It said incorporated 1826. So I moved the 1826 up here in the red panel so that we don't lose it. But I wanted to identify the town. And then in the next one, I put the name of the town large across the top of it. I added Connecticut small underneath in the white panel. And everything else is the same. incorporated 1826 remains in the ribbon at the bottom. And then the third one that we came up with, everything is the same except inside the ribbon, it says Madison, Connecticut, along with incorporated 1826. So those are the three that I've designed. Do you have any questions?
No, but I think keeping the seal itself relatively clean is important.
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of like, if we're gonna change it, it's in the banner, so in some ways, that's where the option C probably works best. I mean, it's not as prominent as having Madison above the top, but it does look nice that way.
I know. I don't particularly like having Connecticut in the white triangle or the 1826 in the red box. I like having Madison bold across the top.
Okay.
Is there any other way to incorporate the word Connecticut with that bold Madison across the top? Could Madison even be in a smaller font beneath the word? Oh, I'm sorry, could Connecticut be in a smaller font beneath the word Madison and still be over top of that white triangle?
It could, and I tried it a couple of times, but I felt like I couldn't get Connecticut to be wide enough so that it didn't look odd underneath Madison being very big. I couldn't get them to line up quite nicely.
Okay.
Another
What
thing
if
we can do is to keep Madison up here and add Connecticut to the ribbon with the incorporated 1826. I don't know if that's moving it too far away from the name of the town. I personally feel it's important to put the Connecticut in there because there are many across the country.
Right.
What if we took option C, but bolded Madison, Connecticut?
Made it more
Maybe a little
prominent.
bit big, more prominent, a little bigger. I don't know, something. And you might be able to get away with doing Madison CT as opposed to Connecticut, Madison, comma CT. That would give you an ability to make it bigger.
I will try that. I can try that. You know, I'll do that offline and I can reshare it
Awesome.
over the next few days.
I know, it's hard. I mean,
I know,
it's like, because I like the look of the first
seal, so you like
Yeah.
the formality
Yeah.
of.
I kind of like this. It's just like, it is, you like that. Yeah.
Right.
Just
I
how
like
we-
the balance of
Yeah.
Madison large
Yeah.
across the top with the ribbon, but I just don't like the Connecticut in the white square.
Oh, you
I
like
feel the same way.
The white triangle.
I just don't like anything inside it, any words
Yeah.
inside the boxes.
Agreed.
Peggy, if you wanted to dispose of this tonight, I would probably vote for C.
Me
Well, I
too.
think it sounds like we'd like some options, so maybe we take C and then Rita comes back with, another option. And then we
Sure.
could, the next meeting, because it is kind of a big deal if we do this, so I would hate to just,
Yeah.
because it's gonna change everything. Not the shield part, obviously.
No,
Yep.
I don't want to change that. It's history of the town. We definitely don't want to change our identity, just identify ourselves, right?
So, yeah, why don't we plan on then, C is like the front runner. And then maybe if there's some other ways to incorporate, just creative, and I'll think about it too. If we can think of a better option, we'll bring it back to the next board meeting before we vote. How about that?
Sure.
Sounds
Perfect.
great.
Okay. good.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Rita.
Thank you very much.
So we will.
Thank you.
Table this item until the next meeting. Next item, I think we're also going to table number 9, because I know you're still conducting interviews, so we'll table on number 9 on the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee. Okay, item number 10 is discuss and take action to award the contract between the town of Madison and to and auto graphics for the town gateway sign projects, and to authorize the first selectwoman to sign all necessary contracts and documents, project funded through ARPA. So moved.
Oh, second.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
Okay, so discussion, so this is basically, everybody's very excited about this. Sherry's here to talk a little bit about it. And one of the reasons we want to get the seal nailed down is we don't want to order a bunch of signs and then change them. So,
Right.
so I think, is Sherry on? Oh, great, okay. And my understanding, Sherry, is, I think this is the same vendor. We keep hearing how everybody loves Guilford signs, and it's the same vendor, right?
Yes, it is. Autographics did the Guilford signs for us.
And I think the good thing is, this isn't gonna be the final design, but basically it's, you know, roughly where we're heading, and then we'll go with this vendor and come back with a final design for this. And we have some extra money that we could use towards some of the amenities. Sherry, Jen was just talking about how Guilford has the solar lights. Does this include that as part of the?
Yes. So in the RFP, we did ask for options for lighting, and this vendor, this proposal does include the same solar lighting options for us to consider here in Madison.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Good. And then one of the other things is putting like on the bottom, you know, so this will just be awarding them, and then we're gonna work with them, and I know Aaron and Sherry are gonna be working with them on like a final design.
Mhm.
And then the hope is that if we get the seal decided early June, then this could get kind of launched towards the end of June and be, you know, installed the end of the summer, right?
Correct. Yes. We asked them for a timeline, and they're proposing to install approximately 4 signs every month and concluding early to mid-September.
Okay, so you'll get to see the final design on this. So, but I think we heard
Yes.
last time, everybody liked the blue, right? So that was
Yeah.
kind of pretty much, and everybody likes Guilford, so we're kind of leaning there, but we want to obviously make it ours.
Mhm.
So we'll come up with a few other ideas to kind of customize it better, but okay, so with that, I guess all in favor, say aye. Okay, great. Excited to get this done.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
Okay, item number 11 is discuss and take action to approve a request from the police department to move funds from the capital improvement program police vehicle reserve fund 24-25 fiscal year 2022-23 for replacement of an administrative police vehicle approved by Board of Finance 517.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, great. So we have.
Hi, good evening, everybody. What I'm asking tonight is permission to move up one of the administrative car replacement on the schedule. We passed last year's budget on it. And I have an opportunity to buy our first electric vehicle, support vehicle. It's a 22 leftover. It's all inclusive in the price that keeps lights, siren, outfit equipment, and our radio. So it'd be ahead of schedule by 2 years. Total cost is $59,576.
So we thought this was a way to do a pilot program to test out electric vehicles generally. This isn't going to be a response vehicle necessarily, but it will be administratively used. And then we get an idea of how this is going to work. You know, we're also going to have a charging facility because we had that program approved, and we're going to put one of those behind the police department. So it's kind of a way to just test this whole thing out, because before we want to make any commitment to electric, we want to see, you know, what we like and where there are problems, so. Any additional questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
And then the next, it's almost like, okay, item number 11 is, 12, discuss and take action to award a contract to Town of Madison and MHQ for a 2022 Ford Mach-E vehicle in the amount of $59,276 as approved in the CIP program, and to authorize the first selectman to sign all necessary contracts with documents. Company is the sole source provider on the state contract.
So moved.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Excited to see this, so. Item number 13, discuss and take action to award a contract between Town of Madison and United Concrete Products for the purchase of concrete catch basin tops under CT state bid number, whatever, in the amount of $43,980. And to authorize the first selectman to sign all necessary contracts and documents as budgeted in fiscal year 2022-23.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, this is just a project that was, planned for and for concrete. So any additional questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Next one, discuss and take action to award a contract to the Town of Madison and VHB for engineering services for the Cops Road and Warpus Road pavement reconstruction project in the amount of $217,730. And to authorize the first selectman to sign all necessary contracts and documents as budgeted fiscal year 2022-23.
So
Second.
Okay, any additional questions? Another project, we're excited to get this one moving forward. No? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Great, I don't know if John's hanging on here, but we're good. Okay, item number 15, discuss and take action to approve a special appropriation to the legal services account in the amount of $50,000 approved by the Board of Finance, 5/17/23.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, you should have received an email from Stacy just explaining this already with your Board of Finance. This is regarding some police matters that have continued. And I think we just being precaution that we wanted to have some additional funds in there. Any more questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, all right,
Aye.
thank you.
Aye.
Item number 16, discuss and take action to approve a special appropriation to the revaluation reserve fund account in the amount of $225,000 approved by Board of Finance 5/17/23.
So moved.
Second.
Great, this is actually, historically, we've always reserved the same amount, and this is for people who appeal their revaluation, we're in a reval year. And I think we realize we're gonna get more appeals than we probably have seen in the past. And costs have gone up, we kind of learned from what happened in Guilford, they saw a surge. So this is just trying to get ahead of it, so there's money to deal with the appeals. So Stacy just felt, I don't know if you want to answer that, but.
Yeah, so we did projections actually out 7 years, trying to get us to our next, shame on me, reval 5 years from now. So this will, I think, will bring the fund whole in order to cover any upcoming current expenditures as well as planning for the upcoming or the next reval 5 years.
And we put how much a year into this account? Do you remember?
80, I
Is it
think.
80? Yeah, and I think it's just gonna
Yeah.
be 80 forever, right? So.
Yeah, we bumped it up 1 year, not a lot,
Yeah.
but it's been slim and we've been watching it. And
Yeah,
I do think now's the time if we can infuse the money in there, we should be okay moving forward.
so we don't have any surprises, because it's going to be February, I guess we'll find out after February, right? If we get, people start to take it to the appeal process, so.
Yeah, and the money stays in there year over year, so it will just stay there and then it could help future budgets. We don't have to put more money in.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all right, great.
Aye.
Item number 17, discuss and take action to approve the waiving of building permit fees for Wellington at Madison project.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, great. Let me talk about this a bit and then I'll probably amend this. So you received a memo about the Wellington at Madison project. That is, for the public's benefit, that is a housing project that we approved 2 years ago that includes 27 affordable units and 4 market-based units down on Cottage Road. It's our largest affordable housing development project that the town has done since Concord Meadows, I think. Which dates back to the 70s. So we're really excited about it. It's going to be a beautiful project. They, along with as we just heard, construction projects in general have been hitting up against cost overruns because of inflation, supply chain and everything else. And so they're just looking for any assistance the town could provide to help them get across the finish line. They actually want to do a groundbreaking in June. And they're just they came forward to us with different ways that we could help them get going on this and bridge some of that gap. And so one of the things was waiving the building permit fees. And so I actually did speak to Vinny about this, and so we can't waive all the fees because some of them are required by the state. So we would only waive those that were town fees only. According to our numbers, the fees are totaling around right now from what they gave, that we have in our system, around $31,000. So we would be basically waiving that, and that would help their project a lot, just a cost that they don't have to factor in. And we have the ability to do that. I'm trying to remember, do you remember where that's in? Is an ordinance that allows us to waive fees? There's like, I should have had that with us for the meeting. But there's basically an ordinance that authorizes us, if it's in, for the benefit of the community, that we can waive fees like this through a board action. So I think it would be great to do this. And then there's a couple other things we can talk about. This grant application, which we've done before for other projects, and we're just kind of we help them. They need the town to work on their behalf for this grant, so that was something they requested. And then we'll talk a little bit about the ARPA funding in a few minutes. So,
Stacy, have we done this previously? Have the selectmen done this?
I'm not the one to answer that, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, in the past, if we have, I think it was before my time.
Well, I think we should do whatever we can to encourage this particular project. So I'm very comfortable with this.
one of the things that Aaron had mentioned is that we're getting close to the number of where if we add enough affordable units, we can have a moratorium on ADG projects. I mean, this doesn't completely get us there, but it gets us real much closer to that number. Not that we will not qualify for the 10%, but there's something where you show a certain increase over a period of time, then you get like a 5-year moratorium. So that's another reason I think just motivating to get this going, get the project started. And I just think it would be a great thing. The other thing that they had mentioned to us is that they've had tons of interest in the project, and most of them are Madison residents or people who used to live in Madison that want to move back to Madison. So that's a great sign, that it's filling a need for our community. And so I think, the more we can make sure this is successful, the better it is for the town. So I guess what I forget what the terminology is. I would want to amend the motion just to be, I would like to amend my motion to approve waiving town building fees, the town share of building permit fees for the Wellington at Madison project, excluding subcontractors' fees. I think is what we want.
Yeah, so
right?
fees paid by Wellington.
Yeah, paid fees
only.
by Wellington.
Yeah, and then the town share portion, because some of the fees we collect, we then in turn have to pay out to the state.
Sure.
Town share of fees paid by Wellington.
Yeah, that makes sense. So can we get a second for the amended motion? Oh.
Second.
Okay, great. Are you good with that?
I'm good, I'm fine.
You
yes.
good? Yeah, okay, great. All right, good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, great.
I'm good with it too, Peggy.
Okay, great, yeah. All right, item number 18, discuss and take action to apply for the State of Connecticut Neighborhood Assistance Act application in the amount of $150,000 on behalf of Wellington at Madison project, and to authorize the first selectman to sign all necessary contracts and documents.
So move.
Second. Okay, and this is another, I think we've done this before, right? For, not for them, but for somebody else, right?
Other non-profits.
Yeah, so we're just assisting them, and there's no financial commitment or anything. So we're just saying that we will go ahead and help them and do this.
Does the money flow through the town, Stacy?
Um,
And if it does, do we have any obligations to oversee how it is expended?
I don't know what happened. I mean, we've had some grants like the CDBG, we had to do that, we've had to do that with the state, so it could require that. This one, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I have
You
to,
don't seem worried about it.
no, I think this, this is simply helping them go out to solicit, donations to them, and then they would apply for this neighborhood assistant grant.
Well, you'll have to vote on accepting it.
Then
if
as
you do,
part of the
yeah.
program.
Yeah, so then we'll have all the details on that.
Okay.
But it's definitely, there's no financial commitment on the part, so. All in favor with that, say aye.
Aye.
Aye? Okay.
Aye.
Thanks, okay, so item number 19, discuss and take action to approve returning project fund balances to the ARPA fund in the amount of $180,138.
Second.
Okay, so one of the things that I'm hearing scuttlebutt is that there may be an attempt to claw back some of the ARPA funds that have been given out. Just with some of the negotiations and things that are happening in Washington. So the recommendation I've been told, they said this at our COG meeting just this last month, is that, make efforts to make sure that you are earmarking or spending and can meet all the spending deadlines within ARPA, because you have to have like committed funds by 2024 and spend it by 2026. We went through our projects and said, some of them, I think, I'm just concerned we may not be able to make all those deadlines. And that was, if you want, I don't have the list in front of me, if you want to just walk through what's on that list again.
On the list was the 180?
Yeah,
So we had 2 projects at Academy. One was for the playground renovation and one was for the splash park. I don't know if you want further.
yeah, and I think that the idea with that, I think we still want to do the splash pad, but I think when we came up with this idea, it was pre-academy. And the playground, and there's a lot of discussion going on at Academy about parking and site design and so what we thought we'd do is put this in CIP, and we could even put it in for like 3 years from now. So it'll still be a part of the projects, but the timing, we just don't know if we can make the timing, because it might evolve depending on how the Academy site plan evolves. So I think everybody wants a splash pad, but we really don't know how we're gonna make it all work yet down there.
Stacy, where would this $180,000 be parked?
It will go back into our master funds in the ARPA fund. So currently we have undesignated funds of about 160. So if we do release these 180 and add that back, we'll have 340,000 to reconsider other projects.
And the deadline that we need to keep in mind for the 340 is,
We need to commit by the end of 2024.
So like
we should
contracts,
have,
right?
actually have a contract, a purchase order, commitment out there for a specific purpose.
And to be honest, people made me feel like maybe, the more we can get committed now with projects and contracts and move forward, the better.
yeah.
So I don't know how realistic how you would claw back, but you just, who knows,
Just in case.
yeah.
Do you want me to go through the other few? So
Are
that
there
was
the big items or?
those were the 2 biggest, those totaled 130,000. And then we had the Rockland Preserve wireless restroom facility, which I believe we allocated 50. We're keeping 30 for something over there, but we had to change our plan, so we're returning 20,000 of that 50,000.
Yeah, do you want to talk a minute about the Rockland bathrooms? Because I know everybody wanted this, and yet the news is that it just.
Yeah, so we talked to some vendors who install these and, it's called Rockland. It's a lot of rock up in that area. So, to be able to put a waterless bathroom in with holding tanks would have been much more than we have and wouldn't be financially sort of the right thing to do. So the Rockland Committee met last week and we'll keep 30 of the 50 to do a water pump for the Scout campground. So right now there's no water to put out campfires, to boil. So that there's 2 bridges on the property that need some maintenance. A shed at the Route 79 pump track. And to seal the playground that's at Route 79 as well. So all of those projects will be handled with that 30 and then be able to return 20 to the master budget.
And the future of a bathroom facility.
So we have Porta John at the Route 79. We swapped it out for a khaki colored Porta John. So it's more hidden and blends in better. There's bathroom houses in the preserve. There's 2 of those in the preserve as well. But for now, we'll stick with the portable bathroom. They do get used and we maintain them through our contractor. But it's just really, in that area of town, it's pretty difficult to do that.
Okay.
So, yeah, yeah, and they voted and said it's okay, you can let it go, the bathroom dreams up there, because I know everyone's excited about that. So it'll come back into the fund, and then there'll be other ARPA projects that we could use the money for, so. Okay, so with that, I guess then all in favor of approving the project balances returns, say aye.
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 Hi,
Okay, great, thank you, Scott.
welcome Peggy.
Next item is number 20, discuss and take possible action on round 16 ARPA funding request pending board of, and actually 19 would be pending board of finance approval, right? Well, we know that. Do we need to have that in the motion? Sometimes we have it, sometimes we don't, so it still has to go to board of finance, but anyway.
So
Yeah, so pending board of finance approval. A is the Madison Youth Soccer portable LED lighting project. The B is Bauer Farming project restoration. C is town campus gym floor, and D is the Kayla Foundation Hope Partnership. So moved or?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Right, so for now discussion, I would like to table A because I think Austin, you said you're getting closer, right?
We're getting closer.
But you're just trying to get better
solid
numbers.
numbers, yeah.
Yeah, and we did nail down that they're going to be contributing, how much money?
50.
50,000 to the project, so, which is great. So we're just trying to get down the cost a little bit better. And then, I was gonna recommend we table C as well. But Austin, if you could talk briefly about C.
Sure, C is the town campus gym.
Yeah.
So, we've been talking about the town campus gym floor for a little while now. So we have pricing on the floor. Actually installing a new floor, to get rid of the bubbles that are in there. The remediation of the existing floor, that's what we do not have pricing for. The floor will be on state bid through Sourcewell, but the remediation is not something that's on a state contract, so we have to go out to bid for that. So that's the portion of that we don't have firm pricing on right now.
But I think that this kind of came as a little bit of a surprise because there was some bubbling. And I think initially you thought it was just gonna be a quick fix repair.
Right.
And that's why it was never really brought before the board, or was it in CIP? I don't even think it was CIP. You thought it was gonna be a maintenance thing
Right.
and a small, and then I guess what, a month or two ago, it was like, because it is becoming a little bit of a problem with people. I don't want to say safety issue necessarily, but people are noticing the bubbles in the floor. And then he went out and found out that the whole thing has to be done, right? Because of the, is it a moisture issue?
So, yeah, like 15 years ago, maybe, there was a flooding situation in there. But there's the layer of floor that's underneath of, so there's concrete, a layer, and then the gym floor now. In the concrete, there's possible, like, very minimal levels of mercury. That's how they were installed back when that original gym floor was installed. But to put a new floor in, you have to remediate that, cover the concrete. The gym will be shut for a period of time. it's a much bigger project than just putting a new floor down, or fixing the bubbles, which was the initial way that we were gonna go about it, cut the bubbles, fill them, glue it back down. That was an initial contract review, but when we studied it a little more, it turned into a much larger project.
But I think it'll be a pretty big project, so I think the board, maybe at the next meeting, decides, do we want to do ARPA for this, or do we want to do an appropriation, but it's gotta get fixed, and it was not, we didn't plan for this in CIP, so.
Peggy, do we need to identify a dollar amount for B and D?
So we do, we'll get, I can get to those.
Oh.
I just wanted to get the ones we're tabling, sorry, because I went out of order, I apologize. So my suggestion is we table A and C. So B is a project that I think, Austin, if you can explain, it was put in by the committee, but there's a little bit of a changing view about what project should be done there. And so I think we just want to withdraw it or just decline the application.
So it wasn't put in by the Bauer committee. But the committee is in talks with the people who submitted, which was the Garden Club Madison.
Oh, okay.
So the two groups are determining what the project's going to be. So right now, there's not a definitive answer on which direction the Bauer committee will allow the Garden Club to go on the property. So
they would essentially, I mean, the committee would maybe come back with something totally different possibly, right? So we just
a
want to
different
clean this up.
location, different style of what the Garden Club wants, but right now, there's not a definitive plan.
So the thought was, because this was kind of one of those outstanding ones from the fall that came in kind of right when they were closing out ARPA. So we just wanted to maybe just resolve this by probably just, I hate to use the term rejecting it, but it looks like it's not going to be for this type of project. So I guess we vote to not approve the application. What did they do in the ARPA committee? Not to deny. That's the word.
It's not so much better.
So, I mean, I guess I make a motion to deny the application for the Bauer Farming project restoration.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, great. And so I think this is not that we don't want to have a project at Bauer Park, but it's just we need something more definitive and then kind of start over with the process.
Agreed.
Okay, all right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, great, thanks.
Got it.
And then item D is the following up with the Caleb Foundation Hope Partnership at Wellington at Madison. So they've come to us with 3 requests. One of them was, the third request was to have some ARPA funds assist them. And with their finishing the project or getting the project going. They had applied to the committee in the fall. And I will say one of the qualifications under ARPA was it did prioritize housing as part of the COVID, awarding of funds during COVID. And I think that it was kind of ill-defined when they made the application. They didn't really have a project, not knowing that it should be project focused. So they kind of got tabled and then asked to talk to the Affordable Housing Committee. They came back to us last week and they put forward a project, which was this solar panel project. Requesting that the town assist them. This is another way, it just saves money in their budget if they can pay through ARPA funds. And I think one of the ideas is this community benefit. There's going to be a lot of Madison residents that benefit from the project, and it's also saves energy, it's energy efficient, so it's good from a community investment standpoint. So my thought on this was, if we're all in the spirit of really wanting to get this project off the foot, what if we just apply kind of the same metrics we used before for non-town projects, for ARPA, and apply kind of that 30% rule. So we award them 30%, and then they have to cover the rest out of their funds or other funds that they raise. We did that for the American Legion. We did that for the kitchen at the Congregational Church.
VFW.
And the VFW,
Yeah.
yep. So that would mean that we'd be approving amounts of, I guess, $11,000. What is this,
We did
31,000?
30%, and we're 9720.
Wait, what's the request for, it's 31?
32.4, so if we do 30%.
So we approve awarding, so I would like to make a motion to award to the Kayla Foundation Hope Partnership at Wellington at Madison, $9,720 for ARPA funds for the solar panel project.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Scott, you get that? You're good with that? Okay. We might have lost him. I think we can vote.
I'm here, sorry, I'm driving again, so.
So last thing, are you good with the $9,720 award for the project for Wellington for their solar project for ARPA funds?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. All
Well,
in favor?
30%.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, great. So, good. So we'll be coming back on some of those other things and we can run through what the balance is in ARPA. With that, I guess we move on to citizens' comments. Jacqueline, do we have any citizens' comments?
No citizens' comments.
Okay, I will see two non-people on here. So, all right, can I get a motion to adjourn?